Right. A very good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the MMA Public Health Ask and Answer Series 4, year 2024, organized by MMA Public Health Society. I'm Kuga, the moderator for the event. That gives me a great pleasure to bid you a warm welcome to the Ask and Answer Series for year 2024, and also would like to express our sincere thanks to everyone for taking your time off to be here today. Last webinar, which was conducted in November 2023, entitled The Digital Future of Health, Health Tech Market in Southeast Asia, was a hit, and we have received very good feedback from the audience. Today's webinar's team is on all for one for all. United we stand, divided we fall. Exclusive sharing on humanitarian crisis and refugees. Before we commence the conference, I would like to share some important admin announcements. We will be allocating some time for Q&A sessions after each topic, where you may post your questions in the Q&A box throughout the session. All doctors who participate for the webinar shall be eligible for one CPD point. Kindly note that dear participants who are attending this webinar will be having CPD points automatically updated in the MMA CPD section. In the event you experience issues, for example, those who do not have the MMA mobile application, you may email to MMA IT support team at itsupport, alias mma.org.my. Right. Okay. So terms will be encountered in the webinar are, for example, let's start with refugees. Refugees are specifically defined and protected in the international law. Refugees are people outside their country of origin because of fear, persecution, conflict, violence, or any other circumstances that have seriously disturbed public order and who, as a result, require international protection. This is subject to Article 14 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, asserts the right of everyone to seek and enjoy asylum. Their situation is often perilous and intolerable, that they cross natural borders to seek safety in the neighboring countries, and they become internationally recognized as refugees. Right. The second term you'll be encountering most in the webinar will be the migrant. So migrant may move across international borders to improve their life by finding work, or in some cases for education, family reunion, or other reasons. People may also move to elevate significant hardship that arise from the natural disasters, famine, or extreme poverties. Those who leave their countries for this reason would not be usually considered as refugees under international law. And let's move on the humanitarian aid. Humanitarian aid is the assistance that used to relieve sufferings during the emergency situations. This is different from the development aid, which is the assistance that goes to addressing ongoing issues that contribute to human sufferings. Right, ladies and gentlemen. So let's see what are the basic four principles of the that govern the humanitarian aid, which is established in by the United Nations Great General Assembly in 1991 and 2004. So basic principles humanitarian aid, there are four in number. First is humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. So basically humanity means it's a provision of aid to all who are in need, wherever the need exists, with the purpose to protect respect of all human beings. Whereas the neutrality is the responsibility of aid organization not to choose sides in conflict or to favor a particular political, religious, or ideological bent. Impartiality, it means demands aid can be given based on the need alone or based on any other distinctions including gender, race, nationality, ethnicities, class, political parties, or religious belief. And finally, independence. Independence, in another word, will be saying the requirement that aid organizations that are autonomous from any personal or political or military objective or those who gains those in goals in the mind with that. All right. So you'll be encountering all these basic these terms in the upcoming webinar. So probably bear with us. You'll be having a wonderful sessions with all the esteemed speakers. Right. So let's move on. I'm going to move on. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. Right. Okay. So allow me to introduce our first speaker of the noon, Dr. Sharizal Azwan bin Shamsuddin, who is the Secretary General and Chief Executive Officer of Malaysian Relief Agency. He'll be presenting on Beyond Humanitarian Crisis. Dr. Azwan is a teacher, thought leader, advisor, mentor, and humanitarian advocate. He has carried out many humanitarian programs under his span as a CEO, which includes from training, conducting indigenous community program involved in disaster management with other stakeholders that includes NATMA and United Nations international organizations. He had also involved in many international humanitarian work, field work, for example, humanitarian missions in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, Marib in Yemen, Phnom Penh, and several others. Dr. Azwan also had contributed many module developments, for example, community board disasters, risk reduction module, guidelines of human resource mobilization by MOH Malaysia, and etc. He has also been recognized as member of UAT Al Falah, a program by Prime Minister Department. Hi, good evening, Dr. Azwan. We're glad to have you on board the platform.
Hi, Dr. Guga.
Thank you. Hi, Doctor. The platform's all yours, Doctor.
All right. Okay, let me start with my PowerPoint. Oh, sorry. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me, Dr. Guga?
Yes, Doctor. You're audible.
All right. Okay. So let me introduce you to MRA, and I'm a representative of MRA, the current CEO, as well as the Secretary General. MRA is established in 2009, and we are a humanitarian organization that works locally and abroad. And currently, MRA has 13 chapters all over Malaysia. So we focus in local programs and also, as well as internationally. So I think we can divide 70% of our programs now and our budget now focus more in the local projects, and 30% goes to the international projects. So we focus in many countries and also and focus in humanitarian as well as development programs. So let me start with definition of disaster, where disaster is a serious disruption to the functioning of a community that exceeds its capacity to cope using its own resources. This is definition by International Federation of Red Cross. Other definition would be a serious disruption of the functioning of a community or society at any scale due to hazardous events, interacting with condition of exposure, vulnerability, and capacity. So if you can look at the triangular events there, the hazards, the vulnerability, and the capacity. So the hazardous goes to the events, the vulnerability and capacity goes to the community itself. So if we go and approach community, we have to look into these three triangles, leading to one or more of the following: human, material, economic, and environmental losses and impacts. This is by UN disaster risk reduction. So disaster can be caused by natural disaster or man-made disaster. So usually we classify into two: natural disaster or man-made disaster. But now I think there are a current classification with complex disaster. We have natural disaster, man-made disaster, and complex disaster. So as well as various factors that influence the exposure and vulnerability of a community. If we look at the natural disasters classification, or we divide it into several causes actually. We divide into geophysical, hydrological, meteorological, climatological, biological, and extraterrestrial. So if you look at all types of causative relationship, so we can see that these are the current classification of natural disasters. Probably we want to know a bit more on hydrological because it happens in Malaysia, the flood. But of course, we have earthquake, storm, drought, epidemic, infestation, and as well as meteor impacts as a part of our disasters, natural disasters that happens now. So I think we have to know a bit of this as a new classification for natural disaster. you know that it has been 10 hottest years on record globally, starting from 2009 until 2016, and it increased by day, by year. So we can see there's increase of 1 degree Celsius per year, and this really cause havoc. The amount of the future warming Earth that we will experience depends actually on how much carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases that we emit in coming decades. So, our normal activities, burning the fossil fuels, like the current cars that we are, burning uh, from the oils that we use, to a lesser extent by clearing forest, and about 11 billion metric tons of carbon actually being released to atmosphere each year. And because of this, more carbon is being is increased each year and causing this type of problems. If you look since 1970, the global surface temperature records shows that it is increase in trends. So these are all the reason why we have these natural disasters. So why the rising temperature? And what is the impact of the rising temperature? The rising temperature and warmer sea water mean more water being evaporates into the atmosphere. So providing fuel for hurricanes, typhoons, and torrential rains. It means that we are creating an atmosphere that are more loaded with humidity and water. And any storm that does develop has a greater potential to develop into an intense storm. Hurricane, typhoons, and rainstorms can therefore turn into a very severe flood and can cause rising sea levels. And as we know, extreme heat can increase the risk of other disasters. It can exacerbate droughts and hot, dry conditions, and can in turn create wildfire conditions. And as we know, if there is heat stress, livestock experience, these livestock like goats and cattle, they will experience declines in production of milk, slower growth, and reduced consumption rates. So we also can lead in the negative impacts on the agricultural sectors. So this is what we face because of the natural disaster, this because of the climate change. If you look into the special report of impact of floods in Malaysia, you can see because of the flood, we have this economic loss of around 6.1 billion. This is quite huge, particularly in the area of Selangor, which produce 3.1 billion economic loss. Okay, dan ini menyebabkan Malaysia kerugian dalam impact floods ni besar lah pada tahun 2001-2022. With regards to disaster, I said there are two types of disaster. We have natural disasters. When we have man-made disaster. What you look at now, the scenario number one, it's actually a man-made disaster. More than 1.3 million Rohingya refugees who lives in Rakhine State fled to neighboring countries. Okay, there are now almost 1 million Rohingya refugees who are living in Cox's Bazar camps in Bangladesh. Okay, these people are stateless and often looked down upon by many people in Myanmar. The Rohingya people are not considered citizens. Therefore, they have not been able to take part in census polls. They are not included in the official ethnic groups that comprise the foundation of the country. the main reason for these clashes and violent attacks lies solely in their different religious and ethnic identities. These are the refugees that we see now in Malaysia as well. Okay, in 2024, an estimated 16.7 million people in Syria are assessed to need humanitarian aid, marking a 9% increase from the previous year. Approximately 6.5 million Syrians are recognized as refugees and asylum seekers. Another 6.8 million are displaced within Syria. So approximately 2 million Syrian refugees children are out of school, and additionally 1.6 million are at risk of dropping out. In the conflict in Syria began as probably because of the crackdown on peaceful student protests against the Syrian government. If you look at the Arab Spring, we know how it started. So it still happens until now. But you can see in the pictures, there are lots of tents and camps that being built because of to house the living refugees in Syria and also in neighboring countries. If you look at their neighboring countries, the Republic of Turkey, they host the largest Syrian refugees population, probably around 3.7 million. So, impacted not only Syria, but the neighboring countries as well. At the end of 2022, an estimated 52% of all refugees and other people in need of international protection, which came from just 3 countries, Syria, Ukraine, and Afghanistan. So today, the forced displacement continues to rise, and the global figure likely exceeding 110 million. Just imagine how huge is that. And, although children only making up 30% of the world population, the global displacement accounting for 41% for all displaced people came from children. Just imagine that. Okay, so from these pictures, you can see the top 3 origin of refugees currently are from these 3 countries: Ukraine, Syria, and Afghanistan. All right, we need to help them. Therefore, we have to, give them humanitarian emergencies. So what are the humanitarian emergencies? These are the humanitarian work focused on saving lives and providing emergency relief. So it includes food. If you can see, there's a pictures of me distributing food in Yaman. So this food basket distribution projects, that's only probably can, they can only survive this for only probably 2 weeks to 40 days or 30 days. Some food distribution, can last for 3 months. But if you look at it, it's just, sugar of 25 or probably 30 kilos and flour for probably 50 kilos. And the rest are all in cans. So food in cans. So I don't think it will last more than 3 months. So this is only for short terms. If you look at the emergency relief, means it's only for short terms. Probably shelter as well. Some shelters are given such as tents, small tents. Sometimes it's a 2 people tents, 4 people tents, 8 people tents, or 12 people tents. If you look at shelters now given to Gaza, they are not allowed to have this steel shaft. So they made the wood out of the shaft and sent into Gaza. This is what we call it as temporary shelter. If you look at the long-term shelters, they are not like normal tents, but they're probably a bigger house or some sort. Medical, usually we give out medicines, all right, and we have water sanitation and hygiene programs where we give out probably trucks, water trucks, and distribute it to camps. This is a short-term programs as well. Non-food items like blankets, diapers for children, um, winter clothes, and some other non-food items we call it, and logistics as well. Sometimes we provide lorry to bring things. We provide transport and logistics like the water trips that we I told just now. Sometimes they have the water, but we don't have the water trucks to move the water by daily movement into the camps. So these are some humanitarian emergencies. What we want to tell you about emergencies. This is focused on saving lives and providing emergency relief, and usually it is short terms. When we talk about giving out humanitarian emergencies, we have these four types of box. One is rescue box. Rescue box is usually to help those in needs in emergency situation, like if they are, experience flood and they are actually trapped on the houses where the flood is. So this is the rescue team usually helps. So NGO as us, we are focused more. Our big box is on the relief part, where we help them after they're being saved into a bed in a other place where we can give them help like food and shelter. Okay, so of course there are four boxes, but the biggest boxes is on the relief part. That's where MRA works on. Let's go to the humanitarian emergency versus development aid. So I think Dr. Guga already mentioned about development just now. But to make it more clear, humanitarian emergencies are more short-term. They are delivered in disaster zones and they respond to an incident or event, and they are focused on saving lives. While we should also give a developmental assistance where it is more long-term. It is delivered in developing countries. It responds to systematic problems and focus on economic, social, and political development. Development aid responds to ongoing structural issues and particularly systemic poverty. They may focus on economic, institutional, and social development. If you look at this picture, this is more towards humanitarian emergencies. As I said, we give thanks to the area of the people being displaced. So these tanks are being filled in by water by our water trucks. This is not sustainable. Yeah, so we have to send these trucks every day to fill into these tanks, and it's where this boy take the water from. So this is not sustainable. So we need to think what is the long-term solution for these water problems. Therefore, developmental aid in conflict areas is much more important after a while, because it designed to alleviate long-term systemic issues such as poverty and some other things. The example I can give, if let's say in medical, we have to find funds to reduce the prevalence of malaria, tuberculosis, or AIDS, or to build up hospital is also a part of developmental aid. Okay, education, such as resources in science and technology fields to help local students to improve their knowledge, probably to find work in growing sectors and contribute to the local economy. And let's say environment to help the transition from fossil fuels or petrol that we're using now to renewable energy. So this is developmental aid. If you look at the picture, you can see this is in Yemen, where we develop a house, or a school, sorry, a school from tents. So this tent is a bit special because it made of steel frames. So when there's a storm coming in, it resists and it can stay longer other compared to normal tents. So education are needed in Yaman, where there are lots of children not going to school. So this helps a bit on the education in terms of development. Okay, this is an example of developmental help assistance that we are doing. Um, from previously, I showed you about emergency water supply that we use using trucks. But after a while, we think it's not sustainable. So what we use is actually we dig wells, and these wells is very deep. It's 150 meters down, where it actually in the area of desert, you have to dig very deep. So to take out the water is not easy. You have to have solar panels. If you can see the solar panels on the right side of the pictures, you can see the size of the solar panels is as huge as a football field. Say just to remove the water, and this water you see because it's a developmental project. So the water is not just for drinking. It is used as well for agriculture, to give drinks to their cattle, goats, and it is also to grow food. So this is a very helpful way to, and a long-term way to help through developmental projects. So this is an example of developmental project. So what we can see now, there are two types of assistance, which is the humanitarian emergencies that happens in disaster zones, and they are giving it a very short term. And after that, we continue to a developmental aids, which is a more longer term development projects. Okay, but in 2000s, actually it started earlier than that, but it is introduced recently, the triple nexus, where not only humanitarian aids are given, there's also developmental aid, but there's a third leg of the triangle, which Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for sustaining peace or peacekeeping. So sustainable development and durable solution to displacement are not possible without peace. Peace are very important. So therefore, there's a work on peace related issues. That means working with communities on resolving conflicts, reconciliation, building social cohesion, and peace on community level. So for states level, peace is linked towards political process to ensure it is maintained or built. So what you can see now, we have three types of process. One is humanitarian assistance in nature. Another one is developmental programs that I told you just now. But not to forget that peaceful condition is needed. Particularly to to have durable solutions. Therefore, humanitarian relief, development programs, and peace building are not serial process, but they are all needed at the same time. Okay, so triple nexus development, I think you should all know about this triple nexus. Not only talking about humanitarian and also development, but also peacekeeping process. Okay. I think Dr. Sushila, later on we'll talk about living in Malaysia as refugees. But generally, we're coming back to Malaysia because Malaysia is not a signatory of the 1951 refugees. So they have a lack of legal work rights. We don't have any, we are lacks of legal framework pertaining to refugees. We have a lack of affordable healthcare. We have lack of access to formal education. We have fear of arrest and they have fear of arrest and detention, and they are vulnerable to exploitation. So why we talk about refugees in Malaysia? Because this is our cost. This is our problems in Malaysia that we have to face. We are looking at humanitarian assistance. We are looking at developmental issues in our own home. Okay, so I think I picked this from UNHCR, where, as you see, refugees and asylum seekers, 86% comes from Myanmar, and there are 14% are non-Myanmar. Okay, so Myanmar takes a big chunk of the pie as refugees in Malaysia. This is the developmental projects in Malaysia. What I'm telling you now is actually a developmental project that we do in Malaysia, other than the emergencies that we also give once a while. But I think we need to have a developmental project in Malaysia for the refugees, because I think we need to provide them a quality education to empower them for a sustainable and better life. So we built Rohingya Community School. In actual fact, MRA Rohingya Community Schools are among the earliest we built we started RCS in 2009. Actually, it's the same year of our MRA establishment. So we started in 2009. After that, we straight away opened up a RCS. So it provide quality primary and early childhood education, and provide secondary education sponsorship to a selected RCS graduates. So I think we know that there are many issues regarding education to refugees. Refugees in children in Malaysia are denied access to the formal education system, and this obtain education via an informal parallel system of community-based learning centers, i.e. Alternative learning centers that we build like RCS. In Malaysia, refugees and asylum seekers are not allowed to attend public colleges and tertiary institutions. A small number, this is because many public colleges and tertiary institutions, they requires SPM, while these children, they are not allowed to sit in SPM. Only a very few numbers of refugees have been able to enroll in the higher education, because they are able to sit in SPM. If they want to go further, they have to sit ICGSE program, and later on, if they get resettlement, and then they have more opportunities outside Malaysia to enroll in the higher education programs outside Malaysia. So probably the syllabus of each schools, the alternative learning centers are not standards. Okay, some are only focus on religious syllabus. There are some schools that focus only Quran and Arabic, while MRA, we need alternative education. We teach science and maths and Bahasa and Myanmar language and all. So it is part of their education system, so that they can have a very good quality education. Finding teachers quite difficult, as funds to pay the teachers are very, very limited. So we actually depends on the donation, but because of the public sentiments towards refugees, particularly Rohingya, so I think the donation is not as much as other communities. So I think it's part of our challenges with regards to education to refugees. we also provide, MRA also provide healthcare together with three of our consortium friends, Mercy and Imaret. So we opened up a clinic FFD funded by Qatar Fund for Development, which the objective is to improve access to healthcare services among refugees in Malaysia. So we also want to contribute in improving health awareness among refugee communities in Malaysia according to the Malaysian standards and guidelines. We would like to provide a better access to healthcare to those refugees living at outskirts. So we have these mobile clinics that as a form of outreach to the refugees people so that they can have a more affordable healthcare to contribute in improvement of children refugees' health in Malaysia through immunization services and to improve the accessibility of the refugees and asylum seekers to receive post-medical treatment and follow-up. And also we work with some other NGOs like from France, we have Médecins du Monde to provide a sexual reproductive health like to giving out them contraceptions and also sexual awareness and some other things that requires for the refugees to have a healthy life. Of course, there are many issues with regards to healthcare to refugees. They prior to arrival have, of course, health issues. They have a poor medical access in Rakhine states, and also they have trust issues with doctors there. They believe the doctors there has some improper intention to them. Therefore, they don't want to go to health. Even then, they don't have any facilities. Therefore, they have a very poor health literacy, and the malnutrition is rampant. If you look at the recent studies, about 27.5% of the children are underweight and 11.5% are stunted. Post-arrival to Malaysia, they have this medical access barrier due to financial problems. They prefer to use money to put food on the table instead of going to the hospitals or to the clinics. One of the reasons also because they live in fear of arrest and detention. MRA has many experience where when we open up our clinics, static clinics in Sungai Petani Kedah, when sometimes there's a police roadblocks. So we find when there's a police roadblock, there's a huge reduction in patients coming to the clinics because although despite they have all the cards, UNHCR cards, sometimes they have this fear of arrest and detention. And of course, one of the important issues are communicable disease versus non-communicable disease. I think there's a study showing the percentage of non-communicable disease, NCD as well, among the refugees, diabetes, hypertension, and some other diseases. So I think from the pictures, you can see there's a mobile clinic that we do among the pocketed population in Kedah and Pahang and Penang as well. So I think it is very good because we outreach them into their population, engage with their head of communities, where they come to our place because they put full trust on us. And Alhamdulillah, we can give out treatment for them regularly. Thanks to Qatar for the funds that they give starting from 2020 until now, and hopefully it continues. So together with UNHCR, we develop cash-based intervention programs where we give out cash to the vulnerable refugees, and this program aims to help food, water, healthcare, shelter, and livelihoods. And it's targeted to the most vulnerable refugee groups. And I think, but only a limited amount of person of concerns that can be aided. So we have volunteers to assess them, and identify and approve whether the refugees are eligible for the financial assistance. And our volunteers disperse this cash through home visits. So to end my video, my talk, so I just present to you a short clinic video. Can you all see? Hopefully can, ah?
Not yet, doctor. We're unable to view the video.
Hello, can?
No, doctor. We're unable to view. No.
Okay, wait. Let me reshare.
Just share the video, doctor.
Yeah. Is it okay?
Yes, yes, doctor.
Okay. Yeah, this video is for 3 minutes.
Currently, there are more than 180,000 refugees in Malaysia, consisting of those from Myanmar, Syria, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Somalia and many other countries.
The health needs of refugees and asylum seekers in Malaysia are complex, and limited access to comprehensive healthcare remains a significant problem as it underpinned by numerous social, cultural, and economic determinants. Key barriers to healthcare access are linked to poor health literacy and the lack of awareness on one's right to healthcare, and an inability to afford healthcare due to inadequate livelihoods. Health promotion is the process of enabling people to gain more control over their own health and well-being. Healthcare access among refugees in Malaysia is difficult due to higher fees, language barrier, fear of movement and many others. In addition, refugees are not allowed to work legally in Malaysia, which makes the services provided in government hospitals unaffordable for them. As a result, the refugees settle for any low-paying job that comes their way in order to support their family and make a living.
Ini dunia oke juga baik. Kita berusaha saja dia orang basic ringgit untuk dia orang. Bagi orang minta 10 ringgit kita boleh bagi. Lain orang ambil ranking ambil satu itu 50, 100, 500 macam ini. Kita orang makan duit dah, kita orang tak boleh bagi buat.
Kalau sini klinik ada, ini mari 10 ringgit sudah boleh apa-apa boleh buat macam itu. Tapi kita orang boleh tahan lah macam itu. Kalau sini mari pun sudah okey, apa-apa ada hal pun boleh buat.
Due to this situation, for refugees, seeking healthcare is the least priority, as compared to putting food on the table. Qatar Charity and Yayasan Kebajikan Negara, YKN, coordinated a consortium of 3 NGOs consisting of Malaysian Relief Agency, MRA, Mercy Malaysia, and Emirat, with the support from United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. To set up Qatar Fund for Development, QFFD, project consists of comprehensive primary health care center, CPHCC, mobile clinics, health education, vaccination, healthcare shelter and referral support. With the existence of this project, it reduces the burden in the public healthcare system in Malaysia. Since the establishment of QFFD project in Malaysia, it has helped the refugees to get accessible, affordable medical treatment, and healthcare support. Indeed, MRA is collaborating with our friends and partners in providing service that is consistent with our motto, "The best man is he who is best to mankind."
Maya gila sangat lah. Terus.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Azwan, for the compelling yet captivating speech. I'm sure many have gained insights from the humanitarian action, humanitarian workouts have you been doing. so far. Right. We'll now open for Q&A session. In view of timing, we're only able to take one question for now. So hence, the question would be, Tazwan, in your perception, your current perception, in your perception, in the digital world, what place do you see the technology advancement can assist in humanitarian action?
I think in terms of disaster relief, we have a lot of digital advancement now. When we have we got warning actions sometimes we got warnings from this technological advancement, and also now when we try to give out amaran-amaran yang awal, we call it early warnings. So we already sending it out to WhatsApps, to banyak cara lah. Let me speak in bahasa lah, senang sikit. Okay, I think everybody can understand kan. Okay, so there are, I think if you look into technology now, there are many cara kita nak selesaikan dengan menggunakan teknologi lah. Sekarang ni sebab kita ada live streaming, kita ada banyak benda yang kita boleh bantu lah. Dalam kes disaster relief, as I told you, dekat Indonesia sebagai contoh, bila berlakunya bencana di mana-mana gempa bumi, I think they already got the message straight away. So there are also technology where they are telling us where to go, and then which road they can be taken, which road cannot be taken, all through the computerized system that they have, satellites and all. So this is one way lah. So I think kalau nak cakap pasal teknologi as well, I think there are many other things such as education as well yang kita boleh ajar kepada the refugees in terms of teknologi. So this will improve their life apa semua kan. So I think that's one of them. I'm sorry because I'm not prepared for that type of question. Sorry. So kalau ada apa-apa nanti I'll answer more.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Probably Dr. Sushila kan boleh bantu juga.
Sure, it was a delightful answer, in fact, Doctor. Thanks for answering. Right. So, moving on with our second speaker of the noon, Dr. Ahmad Munawar, who is a sports medicine specialist by profession, also the founder and relief coordinator of Be Vital. He'll be presenting on humanitarian access, Rohingya humanitarian crisis, Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. Apart from his role as the head of unit in high performance medical team at Institute Sukarnagara, Dr. Munawar is an avid advocate of humanitarian. He is the chairman of Pertubuhan Kebajikan and Didikan Hanoverians, and also involved in executive committee of Viva Palestina, Malaysia, and many others. He was the team leader of Be Vital Turkey Syria earthquake medical relief last year. Nevertheless, the relief coordinator of Be Vital Johor Flood Relief 2023, Emirates East Coast Flood Relief 2022, and several others. He has published many articles and presented posters in both local and international conferences. In addition, he has given many talks on humanitarian and sports medicine related too. He also has been a tournament doctor for both local and international competitions. For example, the recent ones were the 12th Asian Para Games in 2023, Phnom Penh, Cambodia, as a deputy chef de mission and chief medical officer. Hi, good evening, Dr. Munawar. Welcome to the webinar. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair Speaker. Let me share back my slides. Thank you. Yep. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. So I'm going to share a bit of humanitarian access and share more on the humanitarian crisis in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. I think that Azwan just now did a bit touch of the Rohingya humanitarian crisis in Cox's Bazar. So I'll share more on it and focus on our medical relief. Before I start, Be Vital Group founder and relief coordinator, thank you for the kind introduction, Mr. Chairperson. I'm actually a sports medicine physician at National Sport Institute of Malaysia. So this is my 8 to 5 jobs. This is where I work. So I do, apart from my work in Bukit Jalil, also with the national teams. This in Commonwealth in Birmingham 2022. This is in Hanoi, Cambodia. This is in Malaysia, and this was the Asians game in Hangzhou last year. And this was the national. I'm also the team doctor for the national hockey team. This was early this year in Oman. We compete for the Olympic qualifier. So that is my 8 to 5 job. But most of the time, my other 24 hours is to help as an activist and humanitarian relief volunteer. So even in Be Vital, so Be Vital is a social entrepreneur or social and SE, social enterprise that champions equitable and quality healthcare for marginalized communities and vulnerable populations such as B40s, ASNAF, homeless and refugees. Okay, so basically we champion equitable and quality healthcare services for all, where our motto is where no one is left behind. One of the projects when we started back in 2022, we founded that apart from the needs of the refugees in primary healthcare, which are already catered by the QFFD Qatar Fund for Development chain of clinics, which Dr. Azwan mentioned just now, is also the needs for physiotherapy. Why physiotherapy? Because most of this vulnerable community, they work in 3D sectors, which is dirty, dangerous jobs. And because of that, they are prone to injuries. And because of that, they can't work, and let alone to feed their families. And when they can't work, which mostly due to musculoskeletal injuries, which actually can be treated. And that's why we one of the needs the group found out was the needs of physiotherapy. And apparently after they undergone physiotherapy sessions, they came back to work, and again it improved their social economy. So this is one of the reasons why we launched our physiotherapy center. It is one of a kind center where we have a cross subsidy model where for the refugees about RM5. We have also for the B40s under the physiotherapy Rahmah. So that one is also about 15 to 20 ringgit. But also at the same time, we open to the public where it's a normal like any private physiotherapy center. So the income or generated from this is used to sustain the operation. So we are social enterprise, so we do not depend 100% on NGO. We work like an NGO, but we sustain financially through these projects. So our main focus is medical outreach, physiotherapy outreach, and also just medical relief missions, where we organize medical missions locally and internationally, with recently for the project in Gaza. So this is my personal experience for the past decade. Started back in 2013. And then since then was involved in flood relief locally and refugee medical outreach, and also internationally. Some of it is Lebanon Refugee Relief Mission, also Cox's Bazar Refugee Relief Missions, and recently for the Turkish Syria mission, which was last year. And for the past few months, I've went to Cairo twice to assist the delivery of medical supplies into Gaza. So just talk about in particular focusing on the Bangladesh Medical Relief Mission, which I led back in 2017 to 2019. This was when I was coordinating the relief effort by Imam Response and Relief Team. So So during that time, there was a huge crisis of exodus of refugees from Myanmar to Cox's Bazar. Cox's Bazar is actually in the border of Bangladesh and Myanmar. So the huge exodus of refugees, and at one time there was about 1 million population. So there are many specific needs, and then most of them came in Exodus was from 25th of August 2017 until end of December 2017. And for any relief missions, either disaster or humanitarian relief missions, we conduct continuous need assessment. So we started with mobile clinic because that was the needs early, and that was what could be implemented fast. So this is one of the mobile clinics where we went into the refugee camps and organize mobile clinics in the camps. How we do it, it's quite difficult when you have 1 million population in the camps. So we need to organize not just during the clinic, but pre-clinic itself. And also it's like any other clinics. So basically, you have doctors' consultations, examinations, and also medical medicine to distribute to them. This is one of our missions where our team was one of the medical personnel responsible to provide medical assistance at the border itself. So this baby was in very bad dehydration. So one of our volunteers provide even a water to them. So initially, the needs was mobile clinic. We have a local partner, and it's basically to provide accessibility, healthcare accessibility for the refugees. It was conducted in different places every day. So this is how we do it. Conducted but coordinated by civil surgeon. Civil surgeon is basically the authority in the refugee camp, Bangladesh authority. And also we had to give coupons because there's too many people who need medicine or even consultation. So we had to go, the team had to go a few days prior to the mobile clinic day, and then distribute coupons to the most vulnerable, and where they came with the coupon. Of course, the challenges of this is that with different places every day, you can do more places, but there's no follow-ups and no records. And again, yes, there are a few, not many, a few who goes medicine shopping. So they went from mobile clinic to mobile clinic, and not just our team, there's also other medical teams, international NGOs who also organizing a mobile clinic. So these refugees, apparently they went for medicine shopping to all the other mobile clinic. And of course, there's in mobile clinics, there's limited equipments and investigation can be done. So the number of patients usually we saw was 400 to 500 patients per day, and total number of patients during the time when we did the mobile clinic was nearly 30,000 patients. Again, when we did continuous need assessment, we found that there is a need, after we done mobile clinic, there's a need for a static clinic, or primary healthcare clinic. So what we did is that we collaborated with our partner in Cox's Bazar. So our team was based in the city, which is actually about 1.5 hours to the refugee camp. So this is the ambulance, the transportation. And even until here, you have to walk at the furthest mountain on the right upside, on the hill. So yeah, so we had to walk. This is about 20 to 30 minutes walk from the most accessible, because it's not accessible by vehicle. And this is from on top of the hill where our static clinic is situated. And here you can see there's a huge population, 1 million population, and all you can see are just shelters. And like Dr. Azwan said just now, these are temporary shelters. This is just a few months after they take refuge from Myanmar to Cox's Bazar. So when we came in, usually there will be patients already lining up to see. And also after they see the doctor, the patient will receive the medicine from the pharmacy. So this is one of our volunteer doctors who do the consultation, and of course we usually have a translator with us. And of course we do also emergency treatments. And this is also one of the services is to conduct maternal child and health service. So especially for postnatal babies and of course mothers for antenatal checkups. This is also one equipment that was donated, where deliveries are also done in this clinic. And we also have ultrasound for antenatal checkups. And after that, we noted that apart from primary healthcare, MCH, we also there's also a need for mental health and psychosocial support. So we send psychiatrists and also counselors, basically MHPSS trainers, to conduct MHPSS sessions for the especially for the children there. So the second part of the mission was to provide static and primary healthcare clinic, our local partner, for local partner there. The aim was to provide more extensive services, and with this we had a strategic location which is actually in the refugee camp itself. There was proper documentation because it's static clinic. People can come for follow-ups, and we had some basic equipments and some investigation can be done in the clinic. But there are also challenges. Number one, again, because limited facilities, and some of the patient probably need inpatient treatment. Of course, some of the services, there are a need for referral to other specialties for surgery, for example. So that's limitation for the clinic itself. And also the challenges are, like you saw just now, logistic accessibility to the clinic. So we had to go with a vehicle 1.5 hours, and then we had to walk again. It's quite far. So this was a bit of the statistic where when we deployed the teams, that was about only 3 months. This is about the statistic that we have. But in total was 26,000 patients. And we saw that from mobile clinic and later on static or primary healthcare clinic, static clinic, and we saw that there is a need also for field hospital. So for field hospital, the Malaysian government sent a Malaysian field hospital was deployed, a collaboration between the Ministry of Health and also the Army, Angkatan Tentera Malaysia, called Kesihatan. So it is full-fledged hospital with operation theatres, and some of the cases are really rare cases that you can see. And also there's some cases where even bloods, and because the field hospital is nearby it's located nearby the refugee camp, but it's not actually in the refugee camp like we saw with the static clinic. So what we did is the static clinic will see the patients, and then we'll refer the patients who are in need for admission or for further surgeries, for example, to this hospital, which is about 20 minutes from the clinic. So of course, again, this hospital in the nearby refugee camp, so there's not much facility available. Even bloods are limited. So one of the cases, the doctors themselves, the surgeons who actually had to donate her blood. So for the field hospital, we act as a forward medical team, meaning that we screen the cases where the patients come to our static clinic. And from there, like any other primary healthcare, we do primary healthcare services. And then where in need, we refer the patient to the field hospital. So the aim was to provide assist manpower in providing extensive services. So for this one also, we send also a few doctors to help assist in the hospital. Of course, with the hospital, there's more complete with facilities and equipments. All specialties are available, and there are follow-ups and monitoring. But also challenges, logistics. One thing to set up the hospital, it took weeks. It's not easy in terms of water supply, electrical supply, because it is at the refugee camps, and also again transportation for discharged patients. So we didn't thought about it, but there are patients who, like I said just now, took 20-30 minutes from the refugee camps to the field hospital, and then from there back to their camp. So they don't have transportation and don't have any money. So that has been one of the challenges. And of course, it's not financially, it's quite high to provide the field hospital in terms of cost and manpower resources. So I think after in 2021, 2022, during the COVID, they've already closed the field hospital. So in total, 111 volunteers, all doctors were deployed. Total patients treated was 80,000. And apart from providing medical accessibility in the camp, we also found that one of the needs are also clean water, safe. Clean water is not just water supply, but safe water, meaning that treated water is quite difficult. There's a lot of wells, where the water you can get supply, but it's not treated. So and that's you have bacterial contamination and all. So that is why we also developed a system, a field water treatment system, where it can be deployed in the refugee camp itself. It's transported in the 4-wheel drive, and then we installed in the camp where it's treated. It is a function to treat the water supply. So this water system, it's a field water treatment system. It is run by solar. It is maintained locally. So since 2015 until today, we've deployed in Malaysia and also Cox's Bazar and Indonesia during the earthquake for more than 40 systems. So currently it's still functioning. So that is one of the core importance of this water treatment system, because most water treatment field water system doesn't function even after 3 months. So that's all. And again, like Dr. Azwan said, whoever saves a mankind will save a life. Like it's you save the whole mankind. Thank you. That's from me. I welcome any questions from the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Munawar, for the thought-provoking sharing. In fact, I must declare as well myself, had the opportunity to, when I'm going through the videos, when I'm going to see the pictures, I must say, it gives me a glimpse of my experiences when I had had opportunity to serve under Emirat as well in the year 2018 for humanitarian mission in Cox's Bazar, Rohingya, Kutupalong. So in fact, it was a great adventure trip, in fact. So and it gives me, in fact, a different perspective of how do you manage things with the limited resources and everything. In fact, it was good. And those doctors who have not experienced humanitarian mission, I say, please participate and volunteer yourself to expose more. Right. So thanks for again, Dr. Munawar. Now I'll be opening for Q&A sessions. For start, we do have question from the floor. How was the facilities in the Rohingya camps in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh?
During that time, it was very basic in terms of, so when you talk about basics, it's just getting just shelters, just food, and then water. It's very basic, which is quite difficult initially, but later on there was assistance. A couple of years after we served there, we found that there's more shops, setups. So for Rohingya refugees, they are quite independent. They want to help themselves. So even though initially they depends on the assistance from international NGOs, from the United Nations agencies, but after that they tried to build, because they're so quite resilient, and in terms of that they just can't depend 100% from donation. So after that they have shops, and they have a ecosystem where they are self-sustained. In terms of medical facilities, when we were there, there were not many. There are a few, like static clinics and mobile clinics. In terms of field hospital, Malaysian field hospital was one of the best, even recognized by the WHO team. It's a level 3 field hospital. We have operation theaters. There are also other hospitals by other international medical NGOs like MSF, MSFU, MSF over there. So it's quite I would say quite basic for in the refugee camp, but during that time it's what is needed, and then it's what can be provided. So yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Manohar. So the next question will be, being a sports physician yourself, you've been saying as I come to 8 to 5 job, how did you manage to balance both humanitarian missions, attending and participating, as well as your career as well?
Yeah. Actually, it's I think it's all comes back to one. You have 24 hours in your life. It's just a matter of prioritizing and doing what you're passionate about. For me, when I started this was back in 2014, and then did my masters. Even during my masters, actually during my final exam for my masters, I was in one of the COVID assessment center, CAC, in Malawati. That was during my final exam week. So I want to show that it's not impossible to do what you do for your career, and also to involve in humanitarian relief work. And of course also, and apart from work, also a family. So it's about prioritizing and organizing. And of course, all this work, it's not just me. I have a team, a dedicated team for all this, and we are all volunteers. So if we have a good group of people who want to volunteer, we can make a difference. One person can go fast, but with many people you can go further. So for me, as personally as a sport physician, it's in our nature that we usually, like I show you, we usually have medical teams overseas, trying to have on the field. So for me, it's not that different setting up mobile clinics. Also, it's just that these are athletes, and now I'm treating refugees. So, but the setups, the planning, the organizing, it's part of what we do as sports physician. But again, in answering the question, I think if all of us want to do it, yes, we can do it. We can advance in our career. We can be involved in humanitarian relief work. One thing is what needed is your intention. Your intention, you want to help, then it's not just being glamour and all, just consistently. I have many people I've met along the way who are specialists or consultants, or very busy in their daily jobs, but they're also involved. So I think the motto is just do it. If you want to do it, just do it. Don't wait. Just do what you think you want to help. Just do it.
Right, Dr. Manohar, I think, in fact, I would say that was an awakening, an inspiring answer. I think I'm sure many are inspired for that. So I'm coming for the final question. So that being a sports physician yourself, physiotherapy in your slides have said one of the humanitarian innovation. So how do you see the role of public and private partnership as a pivotal role as an actor in the area of humanitarian innovation?
Oh, yes. I think I saw a lot of this, especially during the COVID time. I think we played a huge role of all of us. I think all of us, the public or the private, all of us, we noticed that if we combine, we collaborate, we can make a difference. We can do wonders. So we showed that in COVID, and I don't think I need to explain what we've been doing for the vaccination, for example, for the treatment of COVID patients. So there are a lot of opportunities. In terms of what we're doing with Be Vital, we are trying to do a different angle of humanitarian work by a social enterprise. So what we do is, apart from prior to this, I've set up many NGOs, help out NGOs. But one of the challenges of NGOs is you need to depend on donations which are not financially sustainable. And because of that, when we wanted to have this project of physiotherapy, like any other clinic, we need to be sustainable. And even in, like Dr. Azwan mentioned just now, for refugees, project is quite difficult to get donations. So that is why we innovate by doing a social enterprise setup where we can generate income, but the main cost, the main social cost, is providing healthcare accessibility for the most vulnerable people. So I think there's a huge opportunities. I think if we put our hearts and also brains together, we can do wonders.
Thank you once again, Dr. Munawar, for the cognitive engaging speech answer. All right, so now let's allow me to introduce our third speaker of the noon, Dr. Muhammad Iqbal Omar, who is the head of Health Department of Mercy Malaysia. He'll be presenting on humanitarian leadership. Dr. Iqbal is a Malaysian of Myanmar origin. He has previously served in various health facilities in Malaysia from 1989 till his retirement in 2020, namely Pusravi Hospital Kuala Lumpur, National Hospital Malaysia, HUKM, Health Center of International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM, and Health Unit of University Science of Malaysia, USM, and University of Malaysia, Perlis, UNIMAP. He received his MBBS degree from Institute of Medicine Wan Yangon in 1985. He obtained his postgraduate diploma in reproductive medicine from the University Putra, Malaysia, and Master of Medicine, Geriatric Medicine from Edith Cowan University of Australia. His interest is to involve with humanitarian work, started in the early 2000s. Hence, he had joined Mercy Malaysia as a medical volunteer, and later he was selected as the member of Executive Committee from 2014 to 2020. He has participated in Mercy Malaysia's various medical relief missions locally as well as internationally in response to disasters, namely in Morocco, Turkey, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Indonesia, Somalia, Bosnia, Myanmar, Pakistan, Japan, Bangladesh, and Nepal. At present, he is serving as a full-time humanitarian worker with Mercy Malaysia since July 2020 and actively involved in the health program under Qatar Fund for Development QFFD project for refugees in Malaysia, which is being implemented by Mercy Malaysia together with other two local NGOs. Hello, Dr. Iqbal. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Yes.
The floor is all yours, Doctor.
All right. Good evening and Assalamu alaikum. Allow me to share the video, the slide. All right. Okay. Hope all of us can see the slide.
Yes, we are.
Is it? Okay. All right. Good evening again, esteemed participant and also the chairperson for the kind introduction. I have to start off with the disclaimer that I'm not an expert in the subject of leadership. I was given this talk and so I have to run around here and there to get the material. But of course, I believe that I can share my observation throughout my involvement with the Mercy Malaysia for the last 20 years or so, as started off a volunteer and a board member, a staff member. So I've come across varieties of the humanitarian leaders, all those activities and deployment. I have seen two presidents. I've come across with several board members and also executive directors, I think not less than 6. for the last 20 years or so, right? Sorry, I'm unable to move the slide. Let me try again. All right. Before I start off with the talk per se, I'd like to extend the invitation from Mercy Malaysia to all the esteemed participants. The International Humanitarian Conference organized by Mercy Malaysia in conjunction with the 25th year of existence. The theme is Humanitarian Development Nexus, Building Resilience, Transforming Lives. So it will be held in UTMKL, Jalan Semarak, from 27 to 29 of May 2024. In fact, there are pre-conference workshops will be held also on the 26th of May. As for the further information and registration as well, I have also listed the link down there. Sorry. All right, let me start off with since it is about the humanitarian leadership, we have to understand what is humanitarian, and then another second part is the leadership. Humanitarian is someone who is dedicated to promoting social justice and improving the lives of people affected by crisis and disaster. So we are talking more about during the crisis and disaster, not at the peacetime. So that's where the role of humanitarian come in. Social justice in the sense that in terms of distribution of wealth or aids, opportunities and privileges within the society, there is a justice. So the humanitarian often operate in emergency contexts where lives and livelihood are threatened following the natural disasters, be it armed conflict or other crises. I mean, as we have seen, the kind of disaster and conflict affecting the world nowadays, and also shared by Dr. Azwan earlier. And the goal of humanitarian is to alleviate suffering, promote dignity, and help people rebuild their lives after a crisis has occurred. And according to UN figure, as of June 2023, as many as 360 million people need humanitarian and assistance, while compared to 5 years ago, the need was only for 136 million people. Then Dr. Azwan just mentioned that about 110 million are displaced. So out of 360 million needing assistance, 110 are not in their home country. What kind of the person will seek for humanitarian work? Usually, the people wanted to make a significant social contribution or pay back to the society. It is one of the usual what we call the explanation given by the correspondent, because Jendel et al. 2016 has done an in-depth interview of the number of humanitarian workers, and these are the answers. Searching for the new experience. That's a reason you can find a lot of fresh graduate looking in that humanitarian sector as a first job and seeking more satisfying work. So when we do work, job satisfaction is one of the important factors. That's one of the reasons as well I'm in the humanitarian sector. And securing a sense of coherence and community in the world. So if you look at the like Mercy Malaysia, I think about 80% of our staff member are less than 35 years old. So basically, I'm sure more of a similar scenario in other NGO as well. Dr. Gaga has mentioned about the humanitarian principle very nicely in the opening remarks. We hold on to these four important principles. Humanity. Human suffering must be alleviated whenever, wherever it occurs. Then the goal of humanitarian action is to protect life and health by ensuring respect for human beings. Second is impartiality. Humanitarian action must be carried out on the basis of needs and needs alone, nothing else, making no distinction on the basis of nationality, race, gender, religious belief, class, or political opinions. Neutrality is another important principle for humanitarian worker. Humanitarian actors must not take sides in hostilities or engage in controversies of a political, racial, religious, or ideological nature. Your personal opinions are different, but when you conduct your humanitarian action, then you have to follow this humanitarian principle. Why undertaking this humanitarian work, we are not allowed to express your opinions and then also your what you call the whatever affiliation or the ideology you have. They have to be set aside. Independence is one of the core principles as well. The action must be autonomous from the political, economic, military, or other objectives that any actor may hold that compromises to act in accordance with the core principle. So, one of the good example is the MSF, Medicine Sans Frontières. They are very independent. They are the very big NGO, very rich as well. Most of the funding come from the public donation. That's why they can always criticize any big government affiliated or institutionalized the NGO if they think they don't hold back usually if they found that it is not in accordance with the humanitarian principle. And come to the leadership quality. The humanitarian leadership is characterized by deep commitment to serving the humanity, especially those who are vulnerable, marginalized, or suffering from crisis or disaster. And also they prioritize the well-being and dignity of the individuals or community above the personal gain or profit. As we all know, that being in the leadership position, you have to make some certain decision, which may have a tendency to give personal gain or profit. Then the person is no more neutral anymore. So they have to be really stick to the neutrality, and also without affecting without inducing for the personal gain, profit, and so on. Humanitarian leader work in fluid situation with a wide range of different actors, some of whom may be hostile or ambivalent. Oh, sorry, it is moving on its own. Sorry. To humanitarian efforts are unaware of their importance. I would like to share that kind of situation in one of my deployment. For example, like I was deployed to Myanmar during the Nargis cyclone. That time the government was a military government. So a lot of, the Nargis cyclone in May 2008, we took about 140,000 lives, and a lot of the damages to the houses, shelters, and people affected in need of every assistance. But military government hold all the aid assistance at the tarmac of the airport. So none of the aid can go into those Irrawaddy Delta area. So we have to aware about that. And then They offer the aid agency. If you wanted to distribute the aid, you have to go together with the government convoy or the military convoy. So that kind of situation, I mean, people are taking advantage, especially those authority taking advantage of aids to gain their political mileage. Such a situation, then the leader of the organization has to be really show the strategic decision making, and also the role of effective communication, how to mobilize all the kind of the aids into the affected area. So I have witnessed one of the founding member, Tan Sri Jamila. I was in the team with her, how she has approached the chief monk of the Buddhist religion in that country, because the chief monk is responding to that. That chief monk is worshipped by all the military generals. So the Tan Sri Jamila has approached the chief monk, and to sort of a piggyback our Mercy Malaysia's aids through the aids provided by the chief monk. So this showed how effective communication as well as collaboration to get from the diverse stakeholders are very important. They usually exhibit a broad range of leadership qualities and demonstrate a strong value base like empathy, compassion, strong sense of social responsibility. So here, another example of the collaboration with the diverse stakeholders is, I think the QFFD project is one of the project whereby the diverse stakeholders work together to achieve the goal. And the lack of humanitarian leadership has been always associated with the poor performance or poor outcome with the what we call especially in some of the international crises, blame the poor leadership on the outcome of the management. There are examples are there like Rwanda genocide in 1994. In fact, the UN Secretary General at that time has to take the blame because of the genocide ongoing event. And 2000 Kosovo crisis, again in high-profile natural disaster response like Haiti earthquake, major flood in Pakistan in 2010, and so this is the importance of leadership in managing all the crises reflected in the kind of example. Just to I think the highlight what is the difference between manager and leader. So we all know, I think basically the manager and leaders difference. The leaders usually people focus, they inspire the people and they gain the trust, and they always have a long-term plan, and usually on the how and why are the main questions when the leader implement, and always looking for to challenge the status quo, and so that's why they have to innovate their action. As for the management, they just manage. Someone gives the fund to produce this output, and they will produce output, or they will produce the KPI. It's a short-term the output, and they don't usually want to change the status quo, because as long as you are achieving the KPI, they are happy. How about the humanitarian leader versus other leader? Because I mean, leadership qualities are generic, basically, in anywhere, either a political leader or leader of the organization or humanitarian leader. The generic qualities are the same. What makes them different is that humanitarian leader, they have to make a decision during the life-threatening situations, and there is a requirement to act rapidly, often with the security risks and poor access to affected population, without any information to make a decision. You need certain to gather the information. Based on the information, you have to make the decision. But in the crisis or disaster, you don't have that privilege. So you have to make a decision based on your experience or based on your observation there and then. So there is always the friction between short-term and long-term objective, affecting the mandate and so on. Because, for example, like Masih Malaysia, our mandate is always on the health-related response. But you are in the disaster-affected area on day 2. What the people on the ground need is not the health assistance. What they need is probably the shelter. What they need is probably the food, and so on. So you may have to adjust their kind of mandate based on the requirement. But whatever decision you make, you have to always have to reconnect with our own main mandate. So, one of the another example I can give is that I was deployed on the second day of the Turkey earthquake. Our team was led by Mr. Nozam Abdul Samad, and as we all know, the Turkey earthquake, they don't need the medical assistance unless you have the EMT type 2, emergency medical team type 2, the hospital setting. The Masih Malaysia is only qualified or verified as a type 1. Type 1 is basically static, the clinic set up with the emergency facilities. So, we approached the authorities. They said, no, we don't need any foreign medical team unless you're type 2, because if we are to engage giving the treatment, then you have to go through what they call the certification and all those professional verification. So the team make a decision. We recruited the Malaysian working in the Turkey with the Turkey graduate, working for the Turkish health facilities. So we recruited those Malaysians working in Turkey as our volunteers, so that we were able to provide the services in the pocket of the clusters, not in the main evacuation centers, but they are the pocket of evacuees staying in the non-institutionalized, what they call the evacuation center. So we were able to provide services, even though they don't allow the Malaysian medical doctors to go and provide the service. So these kind of the decisions are there, and then we have to make, and with the right connection and right the knowledge, we could implement. And compassion and empathy, the importance, the quality for the humanitarian leader, and also integrity and ethical decision making is also another important. Honesty, transparency, ethical behavior in whatever action you are taking, it has to be bound by all these integrity, adaptability, and resilience. So ability to adapt to challenging situation and bounce back from the setback. So one of the two examples I've given are all covered by all these qualities. And of course, putting people first. We are helping the people, so their requirement, their needs come first. And while providing the aid, we have to maintain the dignity of the individuals and community. So, like we went, for example, like people are donating the food pack into the disaster affected population. But they are throwing all these food pack into the crowd, same as currently some of the country airdropping the aids into the Gaza. So the effectiveness and the dignity of the people, because once you throw the food into the crowd, the people will definitely struggle to reach out to their food. There will be commotion. So there will be no dignity of the beneficiaries. So collaboration and teamwork are very important because to achieve the common goal, maybe the NGOs come from the different mandate, but at the end, our goals are the same. Cultural sensitivity and humilities are very, very important in certain culture, what they call culturally divergent society. For example, like we run the mobile clinic in Afghanistan. I was deployed immediately after the Taliban took over. They have an emergency because of lack of fund as well as the basic health necessities. So we try to run the mobile clinic. So for same as in Pakistan, if you run the mobile clinic, you must have a lady doctor in the team because culturally it is not acceptable. Ideally, there has to be lady doctors to treat the female patients. And also when we to provide the aid, let's say there has to be the queue for the gentlemen and the women. For the recipient has to be the different queue. Even in the Turkey and Syria, that is a quite norm. So there, I just want to share some of the type of the leader we come across in the humanitarian setting. One is the heroic leader. Usually these type top-down, who sets the goal, provide the direction, inspiration to the followers, and then they themselves will lead the operation from the front. And they will make the strategic decision first and build the consensus afterwards. And usually that kind of leader who dare to do, and heroes are still required. This kind of, it looked like this kind of leader. It looked like a dictatorial. If you have if you glance at it, but actually. Most of the founder, I'm not sure about Dr. Munawar, but most of the founders are heroic leader. I can relate this to our founder of Mercy Malaysia, Tan Sri Jamila. She's a heroic leader. Because of Kosovo crisis, she has inspiration to assemble like-minded specialists. They bought their own ticket and they went to Kosovo to provide help to the affected by Bosnian war. Until now, I think I still think that heroes are still required. That kind of trait are important, especially when the going gets tough. For example, like the Turkish situation, whereby if we follow the procedure, we are supposed to pack the bag and we have to go back. But that kind of a decision. Top down, give the inspiration so that we can run the program. Another type of leader is leader as a host. They usually have a softer and intuitive set of skill. They make the decision from the complex dynamic process. Behavioral roles contributed by the multiple team members or individuals. And so it's like getting the consensus, and the leader make the decision based on the consensus. They will usually know who are the subject matter expert in the team, so the leader will utilize the skill and expertise within the team, thereby sort of delegate the responsibility as well as leadership role to all the team member, so get the consensus out of the team. And another point here is that the gender, ethnicity, and leadership role, and the leadership. So a study of international humanitarian leaders, there was one study by, I forgot to mention the reference, but I think Lane et al. In 2009, they studied the humanitarian leaders. The leader be able to connect with the different aspect of the personal identity in the different contexts. So the leader has a different aspect of the personality. The leader will utilize these personality in the different contexts according to the need. That's how. So one of the actually it is the Tan Sri Jamila was quoted as one of the example of that personality, the culture, identity, and leadership. So I will just read the comment here. Jamila considers herself to have a multiple cultures and identities, including Malaysians, Malay, Chinese, medical doctor, Muslim, female, mother, humanitarian, and global business leader. She draws on each of these to guide her perceptions and behaviors depending on the context. She does not always choose to act according to a single culture or identity because she carries all those within her and often uses several at once to guide her behavior. So for example, when trying to move emergency relief supplies to a conflict zone, she uses her humanitarian identity and business culture and leverages her identity and expertise as a doctor to establish her credibility. So we all know that there was a study, the doctors are the number one trusted profession by the public. So I myself has witnessed how she has used her personality to manage that access to the aid. So gender leadership is just to share the basically in UN the male-female ratio of the leadership is still the male is higher, especially high-risk country. The males contribute about 60% of the senior position, but at the lower level or junior and mid-range level, the number of female staff higher than the male staff. I can also relate this to the Masih Malaysia. Most of our staff in the secretariat, I think the female dominated. And this is also important that the leadership should be from the locally led because most of the crises are in the global south. So global south, the underdeveloped or non-developed country, but the leaders come from the global north because of the neo-colonial nature of the humanitarian assistance. So most of the big boy in the humanitarian organizations, they are all the Caucasians mostly, but at the backbone of the program are run at the country level are all local staff. Especially it is obvious in the UN agency, but like in INGO, like the Masih Malaysia, for example, we have the leadership at the local level. And we can also look for the leadership from the operational aspect. Usually the leaders are those have the clear vision, objective for humanitarian response, building a consensus that brings aid. So I mean that's I've already explained about this leadership. Leadership as a host is one of the prophet what do you call the hallmark, and they usually work together around the vision and objectives, finding ways of collectively realizing the vision of the benefit that affected population, often in challenging and hostile environment. So I mean at the operational level, these qualities are very important. And there are three approaches for the operational leadership. The exceptional individual approach, which is more or less similar to the leader of the heroic leader. Structured approach, which is more like the organization with the organization with the high level of delegation, hierarchy, vertical kind of hierarchy, and actions are determined by the systems, SOP, and so on. Examples are uniform bodies. They have a very structured approach. So because these procedures replace the need for strong interpersonal relationship and trust. So you just follow the SOP. Of course, the most desirable approach is the shared leadership approach. Based on the principle of collaboration and set of belief, the group handle the workload more efficiently than an individual. So this is the principle, the structured leadership approach. So usually they delegate the leadership and also based on the consensus, and make the joint decision making, collective accountability, and share leadership approach. So most of the organization nowadays are using this share leadership approach. But of course, in the emergency response, you still need the the heroic leader or exceptional individual approach. So I'll just mention a few of the mechanisms, tools, approaches in humanitarian leadership. These are the tools for the humanitarian leaders. Basically, whatever the decision or approach, it has to align to global agenda like SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, New Urban Agenda, Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, and also Agenda for Humanity. So these are the basic requirement the humanitarian leader. So that also set apart the humanitarian leader from the other leader. That means these are the references often used by the humanitarian leader to implement the program. And again, since 2016, World Humanitarian Summit come up with this humanitarian development nexus. Both Dr. Azwan and Dr. Munawar has mentioned about that. So this is the way to go, which replaces the disaster risk reduction approach, whereby here the humanitarian aid has to be provide hand to hand with the developmental aid, so that there is a long-term plan to assist the affected community. And this is one of the, these are the core humanitarian, what we call the standard. I think I will not go through, but I can share the slide if you all are interested. You can download the free books from there. These are the core humanitarian standards. This is the sort of a Bible for the any humanitarian response. It is the what we call Sphere Handbook, which gives the minimum standard required in our responses, providing assistance. So this is one of the handbook. Any humanitarian workers, be a leader or the team member, should always refer back to, because it covers all the essential needs of the disaster affected population, like wash, food security, nutrition, food aid, health, shelter, and so on. And another aspect the humanitarian leader need to be aware is at the global level, this humanitarian response is managed in the cluster system. And like the global body like UN has assigned certain UN agency to take charge of those the cluster. For example, like health is under the WHO, logistic cluster is under WFP, World Food Program, nutrition is under UNICEF, protection under UNHCR, shelter under IFRC, water, sanitation and hygiene under UNICEF, camp coordination, camp management under IOM and UNHCR, and early recovery, UNDP, education under UNICEF and Save the Children, emergency telecommunication under WFP, food security under WFP and FAO. So based on organization's mandate, we have to work closely with these clusters. This cluster will cross-cutting from the prevention of disaster, mitigation of disaster, preparedness of disaster, and managing the disaster emergency response, recovery, as well as reconstruction. So this is a cross-cutting sort of a cluster system. Everybody, every leader should, or even the humanitarian workers should be aware of. So this comes to the end of my presentation, the challenges and solutions for the not only limited to the humanitarian leader, but also the humanitarian workers. Burnout is the very prevailing issues because during the crisis, humanitarian worker, be leader or worker, they work day and night until things are settled down. So burnouts is the big issues. I've come across such cases during my deployment. So self-care and strategies for self-care and support is very important. So the onus is on the leader to take care of the team so that they won't go into that burnout stage. And they have to make the decision on the resource constraints, limitation in resources, infrastructure, and also to deliver the effective humanitarian aid. There is always be the resource constraint, because disaster scenario is not the ideal scenario to work. You have to work with a lot of limitation. And one of the important function of the leader is the funding. Every NGO know about the funding is the main thing. Without fund, you can't do anything. So leaders are responsible to raise enough fund to implement the program. So, and be aware that most of the humanitarian response are disaster centric. So which means there is a disaster, people will donate. No disaster, peacetime, there you cannot request for the donation from the funder, because everything is the normal time, peacetime. That's why the HDN approach is very important, because it was mandated by the UN now. Any emergency response has to come together with the developmental aid. So this opened up the opportunities for all the NGO to use this HDN approach, Human Development Nexus approach, for the sustainable funding. So that's the reason even Masjid Malaysia is organizing the International Humanitarian Conference. Our theme is HDN. So any of you would like to know more about the HDN, I think all are welcome to attend, so that you have more insight into HDN. And another thing is the cultural barriers, misunderstanding, and building trust. So it is not easy to gain the trust from the different culture, different ethnic group. I have some experience in getting the trust, gaining the trust from the Afghan leadership. Once you gain the trust, then it open up all the doors. I would like to end my talk with just an example of one of the humanitarian leader I consider, DG Hisham, the ex-DG of the Ministry of Health Malaysia. He has proven that if you put a checklist of the humanitarian leader, he tick all the qualities of the humanitarian leader. Because we all know during the COVID-19, how he has pulled through the crisis until the end. And his comment, I'll just read up. COVID-19 taught us about the need for whole of the government and whole of society action plan to overcome the pandemic and any calamities. So we must work together to achieve the country's common goal. And I believe that together we can make the impossible possible. And this jive well with your theme of the today talk, all for one and one for all. So he reflected in his the speech that we all work together, then we can overcome any obstacles in our assisting the humanity. These are the reference, and thank you very much. I'd like to end my presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Iqbal, for the admirable, well-articulated presentation. So I must say, because I can say, I really admire your navigations, how you have presented from the history, and then went to types of leaderships, and then move on to the challenges, and your experience sharing, and the public health significance is well articulated. I must really give a round of applause for that. Right. So without further ado, because we are running out of time, probably I will go for the Q&A session. So I do have one burning question from the audience, in fact. So there'll be one, which would be, rather I would say it's a controversial, you can choose not to answer, but the question is, do you think humanitarian organizations in Malaysia are more inclined to work in their comfort zones and not in conflict zones where aid support is most needed? Do you agree, Dr. Iqbal?
Actually, which is not true. Sometimes we were in Afghanistan immediately after the Taliban took over. We were in the Yemen. Dr. Munawar, Dr. Izwani also in the Yemen. I was in Somalia. These are all conflict zones. But of course, when the humanitarian organization, if they send the volunteer to the conflict zone, you have to meet a lot of the criteria to qualify, because we don't have many because being in the Mercy Malaysia, to be the volunteer, you have to go through several training, like induction program, basic mission training, which is the kind of training is a really 3 days program trained by the what we call the Caracas police force, dealing with the kidnap situation, conflict situation, and things like that. So we do send. I can speak for Mercy Malaysia. We do send to the Somalia, Libya, Syria conflict zone. When I was in, let's say, Syria, Idlib, I can hear every minute there was the fire most of the time. So we do send to the conflict zone. Yeah, we are also now working very hard to send to the Gaza as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Iqbal. I think you have really answered very well. You've really answered in very articulated manner. Thank you very much, Dr. Iqbal. So now we have come to the final speaker today, Dr. Susila Balasundram, who is the head of Community-Based Protection Unit of UNHCR Malaysia, should be presenting on refugees issues in Malaysia. Dr. Susila Balasundram graduated from Kasturba Medical College, India, and has obtained her Master of Science Public Health from London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. She started work with refugees in the year of 2002 with a group of volunteers who initiated mobile primary care services for refugees in Kuala Lumpur. She has joined MSF Belgium, Doctors Without Borders, in the year of 2006, providing mobile primary care clinic services to refugees in Klang Valley and in detention centers. Since 2007, she has been with UNHCR Malaysia, led the public health and assistance programs, and is currently leading a community-based protection team. She has served in 2 refugees emergencies in Uganda in the year of 2014 for the South Sudan conflict, and in the year of 2017, Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. Bonjour, Dr. Susila. We are honored to have you on board. The platform is all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Gagal. Just be mindful, how much time do I have so that I don't keep people for too long?
15 to 20 minutes, Ross.
Okay, all right, because good that all the doctors, all my colleagues, esteemed colleagues before me have already laid the groundwork a little bit, so I'll rush through some of the parts that I won't need to dwell on. Just to check, my slide is in slideshow mode?
Yep, is in the presentation mode.
Okay, yeah. All right, moving. Is it moving to the next slide?
Yep, it's moving up.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll rush you through a little bit of the global situation of forcibly displaced persons. So with regards to refugees, of course, and this is an unprecedented high really in the global situation. We have close to 110 million refugees now, with all the various conflicts happening. And as colleagues before had also touched upon, in terms of the largest country that hosts refugees, the largest numbers are really with Turkey, and followed by Iran, and some of the refugee-producing countries that we have before this is actually one of the highest is really in terms of Syrian refugees as well as Ukrainian refugees right now. Myanmar also stands to be one of the highest refugee-producing countries in a way in this part of the world, what we are more familiar with. But then who is a refugee? As earlier shared, this is actually a definition that's coming out of the 1951 Refugee Convention that really lays down the rights and obligations of countries in protecting refugees. And this is a legal definition within the Refugee Convention. So this is the exact phrasing coming from that convention, whereby a refugee is a person owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion, is outside the country of his or her nationality and is unable or unwilling to avail him or herself to that protection of that country. They are not migrants, they are not here for economic gain and won't be able to return home safely, and they are the ones that need international protection. Well, just to state it here, seeking asylum is not a crime, as earlier stated that this is enshrined within the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Article 14, and the Refugee Convention is in fact the first treaty which turned the ideals of this declaration into legally binding obligations. Hence, saying that, we need to add that Malaysia has not ratified this convention, but that does not stop our country from having its own legal framework to manage its own the refugee situation here. So then, cementing the fact that it's not a crime to seek asylum, even if the person has entered the country irregularly. What is the role of UNHCR really? I must state here that the primary obligation for protection of refugee lies with states and countries. UNHCR has a specific mandate to provide international protection and seek permanent solutions, but we work closely with governments to look at provision of those rights. And eventually, we'd like that governments have their own asylum systems and that UNHCR supports the way towards that. And our persons of concern includes not just refugees, but internally displaced persons, returnees, and stateless persons. Just running through some of the key protection processing that we do is it starts with someone coming to register with UNHCR, claiming asylum. This person will have his basic biodata taken and basic information as to why they fled from their own country. Then they go through a stringent process of refugee status determination to look at whether they're actually a refugee or not. It can be rejected at first instance. They can still appeal, but after a final appeal, they will not be persons of concern to us. In terms of durable solutions for refugees, there are not many. We all hope that there's peace in their home country, hence they can go home. That would be voluntary repatriation in safety and dignity. There's also a possibility in many countries for local integration. That's happened in many African countries. And then there's a small possibility of resettlement, which is not a right, but dependent on third countries to provide access to these resettlement programs that UNHCR will help submit refugees to these. So it's dependent on availability of such placements in the third country. There's also this fourth area now, complementary pathways, where there are possible sponsorship programs that's happening on a humanitarian basis from various countries, whether for education or labor mobility, or just on a humanitarian basis. So sponsorships can happen for people who have families abroad already to get them over. So UNHCR will issue documents just to state that this person is either in process of asylum seeking or already a recognized refugee. This is for our database to know that these are refugees under our mandate. There's also an app that we use at government authorities, including KKM hospitals and immigration and police, use to verify these documents. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a team that specializes on refugee status determination to look at who is a refugee that fits under the definition, and this is guided by our handbook on procedures and guidelines that are stringent to look at whether this person satisfies all the criteria within the convention. So it's not just issuing cards, but a really stringent process to assess the claim to international protection. As I mentioned, 3 possible durable solutions, but nowadays we have that 4th possible pathway. Bringing it closer to home, refugee population in Malaysia is currently at 186,496. This is mainly from Myanmar. 88% of our refugee population is from Myanmar and a host of other countries, to a total of more than 50 different nationalities actually. But I have to put this in relative to what's the number of our population in the country. It's currently at 33.4 million, and refugees in this 186,000 make up 0.6% of the total number of people in Malaysia. Non-citizens in Malaysia number up to 3.0 million, and refugees make up about 6% only of the non-citizens, just to put this in perspective. And the refugees are distributed across different states in Malaysia, large majority of them in Klang Valley area. And the environment here is difficult for them because there's no access to legal works. There's very difficult access to affordable healthcare. There's no access to the public education system. And many a times they are conflated with the large numbers of migrants in the country. Zooming into the health concerns of refugees, we need to look at three phases of the journey of a refugee. The pre-departure phase really looks at the health risks already attendant upon country of origin, where there's probably a lot of conflict going on. There's a lot of interpersonal violence, people suffering from physical and psychological trauma, breakdown of health systems that leads to inadequate nutrition or access to healthcare. Also, the lack of vaccination coverage when such conditions are there at your home country. In the travel phase, it's not a safe journey. They are dependent on unscrupulous agents and trafficking agents, for example, and will also suffer further violence and trauma in the course of that journey, and also may pick up problems like malaria as they travel through jungles, or when they were the issue of the Wang Kelian settlements that was held by actually the trafficking agents camps, I would say, at the southern border of Thailand, whereby many of the refugees were actually held for ransom to demand more money from their families. Many of them suffered from beriberi in this course of that journey. And then in arrival phase, this is where the health system of the country and access to healthcare plays a lot in terms of what kind of health risks and concerns they will be looking at. Yes, a lot of it is attendant upon what has happened in their home country, but if there's continuing difficulties in access to healthcare, this will continue to bring in further exacerbation of already chronic conditions, as well as new problems, for example, living in crowded conditions, leading to risk of TB, etc. So sometimes it's this whole journey, it needs to be considered in looking at the risk factors for various health problems across the populations. For the refugees in Malaysia, actually, they have access to the government and public healthcare services at 50% of the foreigners' rates. They pay half what the foreigners would pay. They also have quite a bit of access to private care, private GP care, for example. I'll speak about that in a short while. But all of this requires out-of-pocket payment in an environment where they are not able to work legally. So they are very much below the poverty line. And the attendant problems of language barriers, security issues adds to the challenges. And then there are varying health literacy levels, predominantly very much low literacy, but there are some nationalities that come with very high health literacy as well. So we do have quite a diverse population here in terms of programming for various health problems. So in terms of health services, yes, there are public health services, but there's also a whole lot of support from NGO, but this is not to replace inclusion within public health systems. As our colleagues have already stated earlier, Dr. Munawar, Dr. Azwan, Dr. Iqbal, we all work closely together in terms of provision of healthcare, our role in coordinating some of this work across different NGOs. So we look at provision of some level of safety nets of primary healthcare, but we can't really replace a functional health system, of course. We do support access to HIV and MDR TB care. Some of these NGO partners are getting funding, also supplement the government's provision of childhood vaccination and sexual reproductive health. We do lack in terms of capacity to really address a lot of the mental health issues that's required to be addressed. And we are also always lacking in terms of the resources necessary to support secondary healthcare access for refugees. We have had a good example of partnership with private sector in humanitarian setting through the partnerships with Qualitas and care clinics in provision of subsidized care for refugees in their primary care clinics. This happened in around 2016 and 2018 when there were new revision to the government fee untuk charge warga asing. So it was raised exponentially high, and we looked at engaging with some of these private networks to provide some level of safety net again at the primary care level. Currently, we do have quite a number of clinics, but I'd like to take you back a little bit to some of the history in maybe 20 years ago when we first started working with refugees. Many of them were living in this kind of makeshift camps outside of Putrajaya, didn't have access to care, and most of them were dependent on mobile clinics to assist them. And at most, we had health screening camps from time to time, providing some level of screening and support services for them. Then some of the NGOs started to come in to provide mobile clinics across, as shared earlier. For example, MRA was very much involved in providing a mobile clinic, very early stages, and Mercy Malaysia as well, Zuchi as well. This is some of the jungle camps where refugees used to live in outside of some of the cities. So things, of course, have changed a lot since then. They are not in this kind of jungle camps anymore. They are out very much in the urban setting. And currently, in the past 10 years, from 3 clinics, we are looking at about 12 clinics across the country providing services, whether through static clinics or through mobile clinics. And thanks to the funding from Qatar government, this has really, in the past few years, we have seen 5 more clinics added to the whole network of clinics now. Just to note here, because I know many of you are probably in the GP sector, you may come across refugees who need extra help, referral to hospitals. This may be useful information that you can still also find in our Refugee Malaysia website. Just to reach out to MRA in terms of support for access to healthcare in the hospitals, if refugees do happen to need it at your clinics. What I'd like to touch upon is really our work on advocacy with the government in looking at the developing a comprehensive refugee policy. It's still a work in progress. We continue to advocate to various ministries in terms of access to legal stay, access to legal work, ensure there's access to healthcare through a sustainable health financing scheme, something we are looking at with the Ministry of Health, and of course, access to education, which is very, very important. And besides that, there's also a lot of work required in bringing the standards of care in NGO service in par with the standards aligned with Ministry of Health standards. There's also a lot of work required at the community-based level to improve health literacy. But having said that, I'd like to highlight some of the countries that actually provide inclusive healthcare for refugees. India, for example, has not signed the convention, but provides access to free healthcare in all their public hospitals. Iraq also has access at all levels of care on par with nationals. Turkey includes them in their national health insurance, and Kenya also has a national health insurance scheme that refugees can access. So this is some of the examples across refugee hosting countries, and most of them have huge numbers of refugees. So some of the challenges in public health programming for refugees in Malaysia is really the lack of capacity to provide more in terms of MHPSS services, mental health and psychosocial support, and the need to look at community-based sort of interventions for that. The general overall environment that's very xenophobic, that's also affecting a lot of the humanitarian staff that's providing healthcare or any other sort of assistance. It's unfortunate that, I think the world over, we've seen a lot of xenophobia, but particularly in Malaysia. In the past 4 years, there's a lot of seemingly rather concerted efforts in campaigns of hate against Rohingyas for whatever reason, which was something we're trying to fight against, really to advocate for compassion for a population that's actually been through the same levels of trauma like any other refugee population globally. We are also looking at working closely with the Ministry of Health in looking at increasing the capacity of primary care doctors in NGO sector in provision and inclusion of them in trainings under the Ministry of Health. Recently, they have started to open their training on MCH to doctors working in the NGO sector. There's also the need to include the Ministry of Health and engage them in inclusive planning and preparedness for epidemics in future. This is something that, coming out of COVID, we'd like to see that this is taken up in a more structured manner. And also the sensitization on needs of refugee population across doctors working with refugee population is key. Because yes, as family doctors and doctors at a primary care level, we do deal with a lot of medical issues, but we need to keep in mind that many of the people and patients that they come across, doctors need to be highly sensitized in picking up child protection issues among the patients, because the health access point may be the only time for disclosure, and NGOs need to be really cautious about provision of confidential environments for them to disclose. Also, protection issues around women. Many times they may have been survivors of rape from their journey across borders, and also maybe suffering the ongoing domestic violence, and being a patient in a clinic, that may be the only way out for them to disclose to the doctors. So this is something we try to work with our NGOs in sensitizing doctors who are serving in this sector. The other thing that we look at is really the mental health programming, whereby we're very much at the clinical services, the top of pyramid, which is not addressing the huge needs that needs to be addressed at the bottom layers of the pyramid. Specifically, I think at the social considerations, that's where a lot of inclusion in national systems would be helpful in provision of access to affordable healthcare and education and formal livelihoods. We are working closely now that I'm moving from public health programming to community-based protection. I'm working strongly with communities and building family supports in terms of not just resilience within communities, but also addressing some of these health issues and mental health issues in futures. And on top of that, looking at social cohesion solutions with the host community and some of the government agencies at the local and district level. So the aim of community-based protection really puts the capacities and agency and rights and dignity of refugees at the center of all our programming. We regularly consult with refugee representatives across all the nationalities and ethnicities, and recently have helped them establish a refugee advisory board so they get more involved in decision-making on UNHCR's programming, and to have one voice among the refugee community in Malaysia. So in summary, just the priorities in health programming for refugees in Malaysia is there needs to be ongoing health services support, but nothing replaces the inclusion of refugees within a national health system, whereby they should be looked at as part of the whole. We can look at a sustainable health financing scheme to ensure that that inclusion can happen. We need to look at how to upscale on MHPSS interventions and build the capacity of all our NGO friends to reach a different level of improving quality services, because we want to minimize refugees going to the secondary level of care as much as possible. And I think primary care doctors need to move beyond what they normally are used to doing and look at how much more they can do to manage NCDs well, manage communicable diseases well at the primary care level, and also look at mainstreaming SGBV, gender-based violence, child protection, and how to mitigate the risks of that in their programming within their organizations as well. A big portion of it is strengthening community outreach, which is my key focus now in engaging a lot of the government, local councils, MPs, state excos, etc., to be more involved and engaged in managing refugee issues rather than looking at that as a problem all the time. And I look forward to more coordination strengthening across with all our NGO partners who have done so much in supporting the refugee community needs across Malaysia. Just a last bit of information, you can find a lot of resources with regards to who is providing services under the Refugee Malaysia website, refugeemalaysia.org. Under support, you will see the different categories. If you need to refer patients or look at how to connect them with other services, it's all available in there. So I hope you'll take time to look through it, and I welcome any questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Susila, for the impressive speech and, in fact, heart-touching contributions to UNHCR. Right. So we shall, in view of time, we shall move on straight to the questions. We limit the questions to two. One of the first questions from the audience would be, to what extent does humanitarian assistance is crucial for advancing the basic rights of the refugees?
Advancing humanitarian assistance, let me just touch upon the length of stay of refugees here. As rightly pointed out by our colleagues earlier, the need to cross over from humanitarian to development approaches. What we mean is humanitarian is always short-term and very limited focus in a more crisis level incident or event. And the situation in Malaysia is actually more of a protracted situation. It's been years. I've been working with refugees in Malaysia for 20 over years. So we need to look at more developmental approaches. That's why all the talk in the humanitarian sector that at the onset of a refugee crisis, we might need to think of development approaches to look at solutions in the long term. Hence, this whole nexus thing is important to keep in mind when we are programming, that we are not just talking about programming for the short term in providing just essential care here and there. No, that is what I'm trying to push in terms of bringing the level of care to another level that we need to look at. It's not just touch and go mobile clinics anymore. It's about providing very comprehensive care to prevent complications going to the next level, because at the moment they are not fully included because of the affordability issue of healthcare. But if we can look at more sustainable solutions to that, then I think that's the long-term solution there in terms of provision of healthcare financing solutions to allow for refugees to have more inclusive healthcare access. I hope that has answered your question.
Yes, Doctor. Thank you very much, Dr. Susila. On leading to that, the next question, there'll be the final question. Based on your experience being, let's say, more than 2 decades in UNHCR, serving to the refugees in Malaysia and internationally as well. So what are your motivating factors, your driving factors that can lead you to serve for the refugees, and how could you inspire for our fellow doctors here?
I think one of the key strengths we have as doctors is our knowledge of healthcare, and that should have the extra level of knowing that you are also a voice for people who are marginalized, to be able to speak for people who don't have a voice. You can use that knowledge to advance this for people who don't have the ability and capacity to do it for themselves. I am very much more driven from the basis of compassion for humankind to push this forward. Yes, my calling has been very much in the refugee level, but I still see that as a whole, the country needs to look at access to non-citizens as well. So that needs to be very inclusive for the long run, because my belief in public health is that frankly, as a student years ago, I never thought of doing public health. But, public health has such a big role to play in advancing the health care level or the health status of populations. And in this day and time where, whereby there's more and more conflicts in the world, we cannot be saying that healthcare is only for this particular group of people. Because the displacement, people who are forcibly displaced, people who are on the move, on migration, whatever, all that is a global phenomenon. Every country has this issue. And we need to start planning for this sort of population on the move. And health systems need to revise how they are thinking to ensure these populations are not left behind. We are all talking about universal healthcare coverage. It's not just a provision of, oh yes, you can you can access, you can physically access, but financially they can't. Access has many aspects to it, and I think it's the job of doctors to advise on this, whether you're a public healthcare doctor or on the clinical level. We all should see together what we can do, because this is the norm for time to come. If there's no peace in the world, this is a lot that doctors are going to have to deal with. And we need to be the voice, and not just the voice, but a courageous voice, to continue to advocate for access to healthcare for all human beings. That's what keeps driving me, I guess.
Thank you very much, Dr. Susila. It was indeed honest and it was well engaging. In fact, we were very much moved with your heartfelt sharing. So thank you very much, Dr. Susila, again. All right, now we shall come to the concluding remarks. So from the all four esteemed reputable speakers have given their thoughts and everything. So what we can conclude here is mainly two aspects. Number one, as the provider itself, so is the willingness to volunteer and to the best we could, and then to the for the vulnerable population, for their best interest. So we could play the roles from different from regardless of our role. It could be a small minor thing, but we could make it the difference. All right, the second most aspect, I would say the utmost important, is the vehicle. The strong political will from the public, as well as the public organization, as well as the private organizations, because without a political will, we can't move on with that. So hence the collaboration, a successful collaboration in relief efforts is the utmost important. So there again, in line with our theme of our webinar today of all for one, one for all. United we stand, divided we fall. Thank you very much. With that, we have reached the end of MMA Public Health Ask and Answer Series 4, year 2024. On behalf of MMA Public Health Society, I, Guga, would like to thank the speakers and esteemed guests for all your participation today. Once again, I would like to also thank our Secretary and IT team, Madam Muthu, Mr. Vicky, for supporting our webinar. Thank you once again. Have a great night. See you in the next series with much more pressing and thought-provoking topics. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, Dr. Guga.